Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate Breakdown for June 30th. We are back. We are going to go over the slate. It is Friday. Happy Friday, you all. Before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to all our videos. Helps us out a ton to keep giving this content out for free. And if you have not already, come join us at LineStar. It's only $29.99. Gets you access to all of our DFS and prop betting platform, all the sports we cover, you get everything. All right, now let's just jump in. First, we're going to go into the perfect lineups, do a little review of yesterday's slate, and then we'll get to ownership for today's slate for the pitching and stacks. All right, in yesterday's perfect lineup, we had Chris Bassett on the bump, getting the perfect lineup with Adrian Hauser, and then we had a three-man Houston and three-man Dodger stack get into this perfect lineup. With only 5 games, no surprise to see a little more stack-centric as far as the perfect lineup. Now, the winning lineup yesterday had Walker and Bassett, and then it had a 5-man Houston stack, 2-man Dodger, and 1 Colorado. So once again, it's the 5-2-1. You know, we've seen this over and over and over again so far over the last week. I think there was only one day over the last 5 that wasn't a 5-2-1. So very interesting to notice. Also, Bassett, kind of stole the show yesterday, and no surprise. One of the things we talked about yesterday was that when he has his ceiling games, and he does have them, his K rate is substantially higher, and it was yesterday with with 12 Ks. So now let's get into the FanDuel lineup. No surprise, it's going to be Bassett as the perfect lineup. Yep. And then we got 2-man Houston, 4-man Dodger, and then a one-off of the Mets and the Brewers. And in the winning lineup, it is 4-man Houston, 2-man Dodgers. So the same. Brewer and a Met making that perfect lineup. Now the lineup was slightly different. 286.4 versus 319.5. As you can see, we used Victor Caratini at catcher for the Brewers and used Betts over Freeman and got Hayward in there for the perfect. So big, even on a 5-game slate, there's a pretty big difference for winning lineup to perfect lineup, and just goes to show that we are just trying to win. We're not trying to get the perfect lineup. Perfect lineup's impossible to figure out from a night-to-night basis. All right, now let's get into it. Ownership, we got 12-game slate here. There is a Coors slate, but one of the things we need to bring up here is there's a bunch of different interesting hitting environments today. Game totals 11 in Colorado. It is a little bit chillier than it's been. I think it's projecting to be mid-60s around first pitch. And the wind is blowing in. We got real warm weather in KC, warm weather in St. Louis, and then Atlanta, real warm with winds blowing out. So let's get into the slate now. So no surprise, Shane McClanahan taking the ownership, almost 40% owned. He's one of the best guys in baseball, and he's going against the Seattle team that likes to strike out, 26% K rate versus lefties. Now, McClanahan is great. He just doesn't have the K upside some other guys, 24% combined K rate. K rate. The combined K rate is 25.5. At 11K, that's pretty pricey here. But, he does have a high floor, a high median projection here. So I don't mind going McClanahan, just hard to go there on 40% owned on such a big slate. Next, we got Freddie P at the Pirates. Pirates striking out almost 22.5% versus righties. Freddie P's got a nice little K rate, 25.7. The combined K rate, 24.3. So about 1% less than McClanahan. and you're saving $1,300 or so. Plus, he's done very well versus the Brewers in the past. The Brewers just aren't a very great, the Pirates aren't a very great offense versus righties either. 130 ISO, under 300 WOBA. Those just are, bottom tier things for an offense here. We know they do have some hitters, but Brian Reynolds is on IL right now. And the team hasn't been very good except for smoking my Padres over this last week. They were in a slump prior. Next, we got Pablo Lopez, 18%. And he's against the Orioles, so it's in a very tough spot. But Lopez has been really good lately. 1.83 FIP over his last 5 starts, 30% K rate. His K rate over the last 20 is 28.9. He got a nice little combined K rate of 25.3. Baltimore is a good offense versus righties. But Pablo's a very good pitcher also, so we'll see where this one goes. Your guess is as good as mine here. The projection is decent, so LineStar does like him a little bit. He's just kind of expensive to go against such a good offense, but he is an extremely good pitcher and very much worth the price. Next, we got John Gray versus the Astros. Astros hit real well yesterday, but, I still don't believe that Astros offense is quite what we have come to just be accustomed to outside of that offense. Now, Gray, 3.43 FIP over his last 5, 4.59 over the last 20. His K rate has came up quite a bit lately, 27% K rate over his last 5, and he's really been good over his last 10 starts or so. Had a string of really nice starts he put together, and he's done well against the Stros. 49 plate attempts. They're only hitting 190 off of him. The combined K rate, 25%. I think that's kind of an interesting place to go. Not many people are going. Decent projection. Not a terrible kind of pivot off the chalk here. Berrios has been on fire here for a little while now. He's a little expensive for his K rate, 21% K rate and 22% combined K rate. Now, Boston's not great versus righties, and they're only hitting 210 in the last 48 plate appearances versus Berrios. And if you want to stretch that out, last 69 plate attempts, 167. So they haven't been good against Berrios. Berrios is at home. I think he's in an interesting spot here. He's averaging 20.8 fantasy points in the last 6 home games. So it's very interesting for Berrios here, especially a very low ownership. Kramer's getting a little bit. Don't love it. Once again, he's just a lower K rate guy. But the Twins are the story here. Almost a 28% K rate versus righties. So it's interesting. I wish he was just a little bit cheaper. But LineStar likes him a bit here. Luis Medina versus these White Sox that just aren't great. Medina is kind of all over the place, kind of hard to trust. I don't love it. Griffin Canning is an interesting one. He can show a little K rate. He's shown it lately over the last 5 starts, 28% K rate. Now that's significantly up from his 21% over the last 20 starts. So you can go here, but it's against that very tough Arizona offense. Bobby Miller is one I think we kind of got to talk about. He started his MLB career off extremely good, has fallen off a little bit the last 2 starts, but, mid-3s FIP, decent 22% K rate, 23% combined K rate. I wish his price is a little bit cheaper, but you could do worse than going then. Michael Soroka is back off the IL, and he should be pitching today. Soroka, we're going to go over the last 20 starts because the last 5 were just awful, and it was so long ago that you don't really, know what to expect. So 4.5 FIP over his last 20 starts. He was a very good pitcher. The issue is his K rate. He's never had much of a K rate. 19% over the last 20. For the last 5, it's 12%. The combined K rate's low. Very good hitting weather in Atlanta today as well. So probably don't go there, even though he's cheap. Ryan may talk him up a little bit today on his show, though. Severino, he can't keep it. He just can't get it together, but his typical K rate is very interesting at these prices with 25.5% K rate. You could go there. I don't love it. Now let's get over to FanDuel. FanDuel pitcher ownership, McClanahan coming in 31%. Pablo Lopez. I really like Peralta at this price and only 12% owned. I think that one's very interesting. Blanco's getting a little love here. He's had some decent games and he's cheap. So that is why, but he is against the best offense in baseball. So I personally don't love it. Bryce Miller has shown some real solid upside. That's kind of all. The pitching on this slate as a whole is a little bit sketchy. I think on FanDuel, I'm probably going Peralta or McClanahan and seeing what we can do on our stacks to get those guys in. It's very possible on these bigger slates to get some cheap stacks that go nuts. Now let's look at the stacks here. Highest owned, we got the White Sox. So it is the White Sox going against Luis Medina, showing the highest ownership. Very surprising that it's not a Coors team, as it always is whenever there's a Coors slate. Dodgers are next, going against Alec Marsh, who we really don't know too much about. And then Detroit versus Gomber. So let's make me smaller here, get me out of the way. Gomber's not a great pitcher. 6.5 FIP over his last 5, 6 FIP over his last 20, 5.87. So I think you gotta kind of like the Tigers, especially that they're not higher owned than this. Pay attention to the weather, though. It's looking like it's going to be a little bit like yesterday, where there's a storm that hits during the day but should be clear, towards game time. Maybe a little bit of a late start, but we should be good to play here. Dodgers looking good, as we said. Yankees versus Liberatore is kind of interesting. Yankees offense kind of put it together the last couple days. I guess all it takes is going against Oakland. Braves. I think you got to talk about the Braves with this hitting environment. Super warm weather, winds blowing out, and this Braves team can really just put together some home runs. So I think that is interesting. Hoeing is good, though, has shown that he is pretty good, and the Marlins pitching as a whole has been good. Brewers versus Beto. Now let's get into the higher projected here. Highest projected is showing up, Arizona. Now, this Arizona versus Angels game has a 9.5 game total. People are going to want to play this game, but it's not getting the ownership, so it's interesting. As you can see, look, the Angels and Arizona are both popping up as, a very high projected stack, so I think you can very much consider this. It's also not a super expensive stack, so it makes, allows you to fit in some of those higher priced pitchers a little bit easier. Griffin Canning is decent, but by no means is a world beater, and this Diamondbacks team is just kind of crafty to score runs and get it done. Dodgers obviously look good. They always do. However, they are in KC now, not in Colorado, so make sure to understand that. But once again, it is a 9.5 game total there. A lot of high game totals on this slate, which that's really why the Colorado game isn't getting all of the ownership as it normally does. Angels versus Tommy Henry is very interesting to me. FIP of 5, this Angels team can hit the ball really hard, so I think you want to do that as well. Texas Rangers, I really like this play. Going extremely low owned. We know the Rangers have a huge ceiling, And Blanco hasn't been great. 6.85 FIP over his last 5.6 over his last 20. He also could get knocked out of the game earlier, and then you get to the bullpen of the Astros. A lot of different ways to go on this slate here. So value-wise, Pittsburgh's popping up versus Peralta, which is a little bit of a risky one. I don't know if I would do a full 5-man stack of Pittsburgh, but, it can happen. KC, super cheap, warm weather versus Bobby Miller, and Bobby Miller is a very good prospect, but he's young. He can get blown up. Detroit, I think a small 2-3 person stack of Detroit is probably going to be very popular due to the fact that it's in Colorado. But hey, they look great. Gomber's not good, so you gotta consider it. Minnesota, we know this Minnesota offense can get going, but they strike out a lot. They have some speed guys, have some power guys, some interesting ways they can score, and Kramer isn't great, so I don't mind going there. Oakland, another speed combo, a lot of different ways they can score fantasy points, even without scoring a ton of runs, just because they run so much. All right, now let's go ceiling. We got Atlanta all over it, Angels all over it, Astros all over it. I think all of these are interesting. I think it's really surprising that Texas isn't popping up a little bit more as a ceiling play. However, 83 versus 103, I guess that is a very big difference, but it all depends if you think these teams are going to be able to hit their ceiling. It's never likely that you get a ceiling play. So I think Texas is very interesting on this slate. A lot of different ways to go. Detroit bullpen's terrible, so you also should talk about Colorado. And Lorenzen isn't good, hasn't been good in Colorado when he's pitched there. So I think it's really interesting here. Colorado bullpen's terrible. Dodger bullpen is terrible. KC bullpen is terrible. Outside of, a couple of their closers there. Oakland bullpen is bad. I think you can definitely consider the White Sox. However, White Sox being high owned is a scary proposition for me. They just aren't that great of an offense outside of a couple guys. So I might want to fade them, especially if they're not even getting love from Vegas. I expect that ownership to change big time throughout the day. I doubt people are going to be all over the White Sox. All right. That'll do it for us today. We got interesting slate, a lot of different ways to go. Good luck. You guys have a great weekend. Have a safe weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Good luck. Bye.